going on, my fellow A-plussers? Welcome back once again to a brand new episode. It is I, your host as always, Adam Perez, back with another episode as we're about to get into the mid-season finale of Supergirl, its final season, believe it or not. Now we have to have this long-ass hiatus, unfortunately, until August when Supergirl does in fact return to go ahead and finish off its last season. But we wind up getting the mid-season finale tonight. This episode was actually directed by David Harewood himself, and one hell of a job, to certainly say the least. And I have to admit, I do feel like the first half of this season has been pretty spectacular. I mean, I honestly feel like the growth of the Super Friends team, if you will, have really showcased themselves incredibly well, and just in seeing what they're capable of, their adventures with having to deal with a ton of the Phantoms over the past few episodes that we've certainly had. But I've loved seeing all their not only individual growth, but how they certainly work as a team. And this episode certainly was no exception, as we wind up getting to see them even further developed in this episode. Like, it was to the point to where I didn't know how much time they were going to actually spend with each significant character in here, especially when we get to like the nightmare sequences. I thought to myself, oh, maybe they'll do like 3 characters and then we'll eventually jump on to continuing this story. But the whole entire episode, for the most part, was dealing with everybody's fears in the process of trying to save Supergirl. So I really enjoyed the way that this episode was certainly handled, especially by David, along with the incredible writing that we've had so far in this episode. And it's really has progressed well, honestly, this entire season, especially without Melissa Benoist as part of the main cast. I really do feel as though the supporting characters have done an amazing job of keeping this particular season afloat, and showing why they all deserve more spotlight in these seasons, to be honest with you guys. So I've been really pleased with what we've gotten. I mean, even the past 2 episodes with the going back to the past in the 2009, I believe it was, for Midvale High. I wasn't even expecting too much out of those 2 episodes, but I actually found them quite enjoyable and thought they were some pretty good storytelling, to certainly say the least. So, again, despite the fact of not really having Melissa Benoist on set when they first started filming this season, I thought they've done an incredible job, to certainly say the least. But let's go ahead and get into this episode, guys, because there was just so much to talk about. And if anything, usually when it comes to the mid-season finales, premieres, season finales, I like to really go in depth, especially in regards to all the characters that we're really focused on, because I don't think they let like any stone unturned in here. I honestly felt like everybody really had a great character development for themselves and really progressed their story to kind of show you where they're going to be going in the second half of this particular season. So again, great work by David Harewood. This episode was just a perfect balance of great character development, incredible tone, and a vibe just all episode long. I just felt an intensity about this episode that was really much needed, and I absolutely loved it. Some even horror elements in here, especially when you're dealing with the idea of the Phantoms projecting your greatest fears and nightmares for you and things like that. I thought just the tone and the atmosphere of this episode was just perfect and just really well handled. And even some little brief moments of humor in here, like for instance, Brainiac, right? One of Brainiac's fears. I love the idea that it's Brainiac and John that are, out of everybody, push through the Phantom's attack, right? Don't really get sucked into their nightmares. Brainiac, not only because of his alien race, but his 11th or 12th level intelligence, able to kind of allow him to compartmentalize his fears a little bit, although we get to see that some of his fears are kind of leaking into reality, if you will, like at least from his particular point of view. And I love just the great camera work and, again, directing choices and maybe even editing choices that certain scenes when we go and see Brainiac, one of his fears is balloons, and you just see random balloons falling from the set. I thought it was hilarious, honestly. And for me, it honestly even touched a little bit closer to home, because while I wouldn't say I have a fear of balloons, I definitely do, like, my anxiety level just skyrockets, to say the least. Like, a little tidbit of information about me for you guys. When I first moved to Texas, one of my first jobs was working at an MJ Designs. It's like a craft store, if you will, hobbies and crafts. And we used to blow up balloons. We used to have a section where you could order like latex balloons, mylar balloons, whatever the case, whatever the occasion was. Well, sometimes we would have car dealerships that were nearby order from us. So some weekends we would have huge orders of balloons that we would just sit there with a helium machine, just like tying balloons together and blowing them up and stuff. And I tell you, after so many years of doing that, and the random popping right next to your face or in your ear when you're like least expecting it, I mean, that draws a fear out of you. Like, it draws a high level of anxiety. So anytime I'm around balloons now, I'm waiting for them to pop. Like, I'm there's a part of me that kind of tenses up all the time. Somebody wants me to hold a pair of balloons, I'm like, okay, and I just kind of hold it away from me, just because it's just kind of induced this fear of having to blow up balloons when I worked at a hobby shop. So the fact that somebody else had that fear of balloons popping, I thought was absolutely hilarious. I don't know if that's an actual fear or a high anxiety moment for somebody like a Jesse Rath or just the character Brainiac. I'm not quite sure, but I thought it was pretty humorous that they actually wind up putting that in there, honestly. But this is the episode in which it's the mission to go ahead and save Supergirl. Homegirl's been in the Phantom Zone since the beginning practically of this season, and we're finally getting her out, thank goodness. While I certainly have enjoyed Melissa's journey in the Phantom Zone, some really great adventures in here, especially with her and was it Nixie, who, by the way, is apparently going to be maybe one of the villains or one of the problems for Supergirl going into the remainder of this season, as she winds up catching a ride back to Earth, if you will. So Nixie, the imp, is definitely going to be popping up for us. But we've seen her. We've seen Supergirl meeting up with her father in here, played by Jason Bear, who's just done an incredible job as Kara's father in here. And I didn't even know he was going to be in the remainder of this season. I only expected him in the first half, but we clearly see from just the preview that we saw that we can certainly expect him back and living his life on Earth, I'm assuming with his daughter. So it should be interesting to see how that definitely turns out. But I've really enjoyed Kara's story in here, and this is where we get the opportunity to see her not only trying to also rescue her father, but we see her having an attack with the Phantom that actually winds up getting her, and we see Supergirl really just experiencing her own fears and her own doubts and really struggling with a ton of just terrible grief, right? Having premonitions and fears that her friends, if they ever tried to come for her, would certainly die at her expense, if you will. And so I love Melissa Benoist in here. I continue to think she's an incredible actress, and to be able to provoke those fears and just put on the performance that she certainly did in here, I absolutely loved it. So shout out to Melissa Benoist for yet another great appearance in here. But we do get the opportunity to see the team in here really getting everything together for their mission. And one of the things that I absolutely loved about this is that John reveals that the tower is actually a ship. I wasn't quite sure how I felt about that at first. I mean, look, I love the tower. I think it's a great sort of base, if you will. This is a really great surprise. Part of me was thinking to myself, John, you're just now letting us in on this kind of secret, right? A pretty simple design, honestly, for the ship. It wasn't anything over elaborate or anything like that. I honestly felt like it was like a perfect ship. For some reason, the first thing when he said it turns into a ship, I just kept thinking like the Wave Rider, like it's huge like that. But when you see the fact that it's actually small enough to hide inside of the tower itself, logistically, I guess just like the way it's shaped and everything, it definitely makes like I could easily see that being the inside of their base this whole entire time. So I really loved the way that it was portrayed in here. I thought the graphics for the most part were really handled well, especially with the ship and it going into the Phantom Zone. I feel like I've mentioned this before on the previous reviews, that I honestly really enjoyed the graphics that they had for the Phantom Zone that we saw with Kara along with her father. I honestly thought that they've done a really, really great job so far in regards to that. But some really great little reveals to go ahead and start this mission. But one of the things that they quickly find out is that as they enter the Phantom Zone, the nightmares begin, and they wind up having a power surge that I believe maybe drops the containment units that they had the Phantom in, and he was able to start projecting his fears. And I'm assuming the rest of the Phantoms in the Phantom Zone also started projecting their everybody's fears on them as well. So this is really where I felt we got into the nitty gritty of this episode. Shout out to, like, out of all the characters that had nightmare experiences, performance wise, I gotta give it to Katie McGrath. I think she did a brilliant job as Lena Luthor. And one of the things that I loved about Katie in this episode, especially her as Lena, is the fact that they continue to prove why she is such a perfect fit in here. Like her conversation that she winds up having with Dreamer, for me, was probably my favorite scene of the entire episode. Well, not quite, but maybe for character moments, if you will, like character development stuff. You know, I honestly wouldn't have thought that Lena and Dreamer would have something like that in common. And I don't think it's something that's in regards to them both losing their moms at the same time, you know, or at young ages. We know about them separately, right? That's something that we've learned throughout the season. But when you actually put them in a situation where they're forced to talk and actually be together, you quickly realize that they have something huge like that, very in similarities with each other. And that's something that I didn't really expect to get brought up in a conversation between these two. And when they wind up making that very unfortunate connection, I immediately love just how much these two characters opened up to each other. And you can really see how perfectly Lena fits into this group, continuing to make friends, continuing to open up herself, continuing to learn more about Kara's team, and really see how much they do relate to one another. And I think it even surprises some of these characters, especially like Dreamer, right? Who would have thought that these two would have had a conversation and find that they have so many commonalities between each other? And I just thought it was a really heartfelt moment for those two, just because of the fact that you know what their mother certainly meant. I mean, goodness, you know, Lena's mother passing away at a young age. Look what family it wind up sticking her with, right? And we definitely know when it comes to Dreamer how she certainly struggled with her abilities and wishes that her mom was certainly around to have taught her how to do that. I mean, we even saw her struggling with that back in 2009, wanting to go ahead and pick up the phone and call her mom. So I just thought that was a really great sort of commonality that these two characters had, that the writers allowed them to kind of draw this conversation out. And I thought it made for some really great television, honestly. And again, really continues to show Lena Luthor and why she fits in this group perfectly. But just from that moment alone, and then you go right into Lena's nightmare, Katie McGrath is just an incredible actress. And like, for me, I love how easy it seems to be for her to just tap into her emotions and just feel like they're just so raw and genuine. She just has this shiver, this quiver about herself, like the eyes watering and the tears. Like, I absolutely loved it. And kudos goes out to David Harewood also for his alien references in this in this movie, or in this episode, I should certainly say. You know, like the idea of Lena pressed up against the glass and you just see the face coming towards her, just reminds me of Ripley in the Alien from the first Alien movie, if I'm not mistaken, or maybe that was Aliens. I can't quite recall, but yeah, definitely had that throwback to an Aliens vibe, that horror sort of space alien, if you will, as we get to see Lena falling into her nightmare of an old myth that her mom used to tell her, I think as like a bedtime story or something like that. Like, I can't swim, so the idea of drowning is a fear of mine. So I can easily relate to this when it comes to Lena Luthor for sure. But I thought she just did an incredible job in here. We get to see Dreamer in here, trying to put some of her dreams together. Clearly, unfortunately for her, getting an opportunity to see Brainiac sort of sucked out into the vacuum of the Phantom Zone, experiencing one of her nightmares. And the one thing that I will say about this is, like, especially how they wrapped up everybody's nightmare, I am glad that there are some people that got closure, but not everybody, right? Like, you get to see Lena overcoming her fear. You get to see, unfortunately, Dreamer watching somebody she loves to be taken away from her. as the conclusion of her nightmare to kind of end in disappointment and fear and things like that, right? So I am glad that they decided to give some people some closure, some people some unfortunate disappointment, and even some people the ability to kind of see or foreshadow where they're going to go, like especially when it comes to Kelly. Her dream of thinking she was trying to um I don't know if she realized that she was in a nightmare and she thought that maybe Alex was. And so her whole determination is to try and talk her sort of off that ledge, if you will, to bring her back, right? And then we quickly come to find out that Alex is really just trying to get Kelly off of this particular ship to try and survive. And in the process of doing that, we see Kelly not wanting to go ahead and leave Alex behind and instead trying to protect her. And so we see Kelly do this sweet ass slide across the ground, and she winds up picking up this metal contraption and I think fell off of the ship earlier, and she winds up using it as a shield to go ahead and actually deflect the Phantom's slash, which I thought was pretty cool in and of itself. If I'm not mistaken, I do believe Kelly does have time in the military. I do believe that she was an active soldier, if I'm not mistaken. Please let me know if I'm wrong in that regards. So I'm sure she does have some combat readiness to her if that's the case, because guys, if you guys have not seen it as of yet, they have in fact revealed what they're going to be using Kelly for going into season 2, as her character certainly continues to progress. And let me go ahead and pull it up for you right now, because Kelly is in fact going to be the next Guardian, ladies and gentlemen. If you didn't see this, I believe they dropped this either last week. I believe the actress wound up revealing this on her Twitter account. Walking in the footsteps of her brother James Olsen, who was once the Guardian as well. Didn't have as much great color as Kelly certainly does. I've been asking for them to add color to the Guardian costume since we've seen it. Like after its first season that James debuted, I'm like, all right, next season you gotta add color to it, and they never did, unfortunately. But they wind up giving it to Kelly, and I think she looks fantastic. I have seen some set photos of her already, and she does look great, and I cannot wait to see what she winds up doing in action, because it is a fear of her also, right? The idea of, like, I guess it's probably a combination of fears of her along with Alex's, the idea that they don't have superpowers, right? And yet they're still out there trying to fight against these extremely powerful enemies and bringing their own knowledge, if you will, to this particular team. And so the idea that that's even a conversation that Kelly winds up having this episode, and her fear of not being able to protect people or maybe get in the way herself, this clearly is going to go ahead and inspire her to become the Guardian at some particular point in time next season. So I'm actually really ready to kind of see this next evolution of this character, especially when it comes to her partnership with Alex. So I do think that they probably will make an incredible team together, now that I come to think about it. So that is in fact Kelly as the Guardian, guys, set up for us for next season. And that, again, all that comes as inspired, it looks like, from this nightmare and this resolution to her nightmare as well. Let's see here. We talked about Dreamer, Lena, Kelly, Brainies with the whole balloons. And Alex's was pretty frightening as well. The determination of getting her sister back, right? The fear of losing her sister and losing out on that opportunity. Kyler Lee is another incredible actress that knows how to pull out emotions instantly. I mean, I used to love watching her back in her Grey's Anatomy day, and it definitely seems as though, like, you could tell talent when you see it, even back then, and she certainly has carried it over onto this show. And just the idea that she's truly willing to do anything in order to protect her sister and bring her sister back, even if that means being a traitorous ass bitch to John and throwing his ass in the containment unit as well. But we quickly see that she finds herself in a terrible position, getting cut by the Phantom as well, and almost having to sacrifice herself, if you will, in order to go ahead and save the rest of the ship, because the Phantoms now know that somebody's on board that ship, sort of thing, and now they're all after them. So I do appreciate sort of that selflessness that Alex continues to have, like that leadership aspect of understanding the idea of having a sacrifice and things like that. But still a pretty terrifying nightmare, if you ask me, to say the least. So again, this episode was just so incredibly intense. I really enjoyed the writing, and I thought David Harewood brought an amazing aspect to this episode with his directing, especially because of the fact that John survives, right? John's one of the few that actually does not have to deal with these nightmares, and instead he's actually the one that winds up saving the day. And I put in my notes, didn't David Harewood direct this episode? Look at him directing all his spotlight, making himself look good in this episode. I mean, David Harewood had some great lines. I know he wasn't the writer of this episode, but damn, I mean, John had some great lines. When he's about to go down to the containment unit to go ahead and face the Phantom, Brainiac's telling him, to be careful because he could still be overpowered. And John drops the line, not while I have so much to fight for. Like, damn, what a line, John. I absolutely loved it. And then especially his pushback against the Phantom, the "not today" line. That's always a popular line, and he hit that off perfectly. But I love seeing his pushback, and I just based off of his pushback to stop the Phantom, I am wondering, just based off of John's powers and all the glimpses that we saw of the nightmares, I'm assuming there is a part of John that's kind of maybe living through some of these nightmares with these characters and understanding all their fears and what they're certainly going through. So I'm pretty sure this is probably a really difficult thing for John to certainly have to do also, because now he knows these really intimate sort of secrets, if you will, by all of his friends, and probably understands them a lot better, and even probably a lot more than they probably understand themselves at this point. But a combination of that and seeing John experience realizing what everybody's going through, then seeing everybody kind of have their own closure to their nightmares, I thought it was just a really great way to round up everything for this episode. And just handled beautifully, honestly. Just handled really beautifully, to the point to where it gave me goosebumps seeing John in action. I mean, I think David Harewood continues to do just an amazing job as John Jones. And really just, look, to be perfectly honest with you guys, this first half of this season has truly made me not want to say goodbye to this show. To the point to where I am really going to be bummed if these characters are not utilized in some way or another, because, I know we're 6 seasons into this show, and every season these actors and this crew and cast continue to do just really great work. But I gotta say, I honestly feel like season 6 is some of their finest. And what I mean by that is like performances, like just really in tune with their characters, knowing who they are, and just being so comfortable with one another. And this final journey, I just feel like everybody just brought their A game. And it's just, for me, it's I know maybe the ratings haven't been that great, you know what I mean? And I'm sure Melissa Benoist wants to go on and be a mom and enjoy motherhood and things like that. I just hope that there's a place for some of these really great actors who have really showcased why they're superheroes and why they're on this show in the first place. And they've definitely made a believer out of me for sure, because I love David Harewood as John Jones. The actress that plays Nia Null has done incredible work, and I really just view her as her own singular hero at this particular point in time. Before, it was easy to see Dreamer as a sidekick or an up-and-comer, but now I don't view her that way at all. I feel like I view her as her own superhero, and it's one of those things, and that's one of the reasons, again, why I put up that video of why we need a Legion of the Superheroes, because there's so much greatness still in this season and with these characters that haven't been mined yet. And I would love to see more of it. But love that each dream winds up resolving. The ending was pretty brief, I will admit that. The idea of Supergirl and her father about to give up because the Phantoms are arriving, and all of a sudden the sun shines, right? The clouds part, the sun comes shining down, that yellow prodigal son vibe. All the Kryptonians are getting their power back. Kara feels great. Kara's father is like, why do I feel so strong? Because you're an alien from Krypton, and now you're just going to be as strong as Superman. It's going to be great when you get back to Earth, bro. And so I enjoyed that sort of realization that like her friends are here, and not just her friends. She says her family is certainly here, right? And again, especially the fact that it's final season. This means everything, and I think a lot of us were certainly really waiting for the Danvers to finally be reunited. The one line from Alex at the end of "I got you" as they embrace, which was just great. Kind of, I actually just got goosebumps just saying that, honestly, and thinking about it again. A brief, I'm assuming, because of the fact that yes, probably Melissa Benoist was not even maybe on set at the time. Who knows? Like the idea of that, like, did they have a shot of actually Kyler Lee and Melissa Benoist right next to each other, like seeing both of their faces? Because I see them embrace, and that's an easy shot to be able to do without Melissa Benoist really being there. I mean, you could just film the back of her, sort of thing. So I'm just wondering how much footage that they actually had with Melissa and the rest of the team at this particular point in time when it was filmed, or was it a case that Melissa still wasn't on set, because I think she started her production a little bit later, if I'm not mistaken. So I'm not quite sure, but regardless, that's probably one of the reasons why the ending was so short and quickly wrapped up. But for me, I thought it was just perfectly fine, honestly. The fact that they were together again pleases me. Seeing the little extra when it comes to Nixie going through the portal as well. I'm ready to go ahead and is it August yet? Is it August yet? I'm ready to see where this story certainly leads off at. But everybody had an amazing job, hard work by everybody, and I think again the Super Friends proved themselves, and it's honestly great to have Melissa Benoist back. I'm really ready to see her and the rest of the crew finish off this season together the way that it should certainly be. But guys, listen, I know we run a little bit longer, but again, when it comes to mid-season finales, premieres, we like to go ahead and make sure that we touch upon everybody just so we know where we're at before we go ahead and get into the next half of this season. But guys, listen, I want to know what you guys have thought. I've been really impressed with this first half of this season. What about you guys? Have you thought it's just been okay? Have you loved it as much as I have? Not for you this season. I definitely want to know what you guys have thought so far, and especially about this episode, because at the end of the day, it's just my A+ opinions, but at the end of the day, I want to know yours. So let your thoughts be known in the live chat or the comment section box below. But other than that, guys, Superman and Lois will in fact be back with new episodes this week. I believe, I don't know if you still can, but I know HBO Max right now does have the first 5 episodes of Superman and Lois. So if you've missed out on Superman and Lois so far, you do have time to go ahead and catch up. It is on HBO Max, the streaming service, and Stuart will be back beginning next week to go ahead and bring you guys a brand new episode review for Superman and Lois as we get back on schedule with that. And then for me, I'll see you for the remainder of Black Lightning, and then I'll be back in August with Supergirl. And if you guys love our content, do us a big favor, subscribe to this channel, hit that bell notification so when we drop brand new videos, you'll be notified. And if you love this video and this review, hit that thumbs up, guys. That big like certainly goes a long way. But until next time, guys, do me a big favor, take care of yourselves, take care of each other, and until next time, keep it A+. I'll talk to you later. Bye.